Now we're going to look at So Below. We have 5 extraordinary heart power formulas. Heart power 1, the soul formula. Heart power 2, the spiritual formula. Heart power 3, the mental journey formula. Heart power 4, the emotional formula. Heart power 5, the physical formula. And then we have 5 plus 1 formula called heart power 6. 5 plus 1. Heart power 6 is the formula for the Cisterna chyli. This is the most extraordinary new research. This Cisterna chyli research formula is responsible for releasing the stress of all the trauma that manifests in the physical body as a result of all the spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical drama of our lives. The Cisterna chyli is one of the most important organs in the human body. It is the central reserve of all the waste products of the de novo toxins of the human body. This formula can never be used on its own. It must never be used on its own. It is not a formula that is isolated to be used by itself. It must always be used with the relevant heart power formula. Regardless of what the trouble is, you must never use this formula on its own. There is a reason for this. It is quite simple. If you do use this formula on its own, you create symptoms of distress, pain, and it is something that we never do. We never harm our patients. Our belief system is first, do no harm. If you give somebody this formula without understanding why the cistern is blocked, all you do is create symptoms. The cisterna release opens up the sigmoid, allows the Cisterna chyli to open in order to flush the chyle into the subclavicle nodes via the lymphatic duct. From here, the chyle passes into the venal blood. This flows via the vena cava into the right atrium of the heart. If the heart is blocked, this will not flush those poisons. This is a most important map for your understanding of why the physical body breaks down. These big nodes behind the Cisterna chyli are responsible for trapping the toxins from each quadrant of the human body and holding them in reserve until the heart is capable of releasing them. If you have a complication, a trauma, anything that is manifesting as a negativity in the heart, and all negativity will manifest somewhere in the heart, then the correlative lymph glands will remain, they will not open, they will not release into the Cisterna chyli. So to open up the system, to try to release these toxins, to be passed into a heart that's already troubled, always causes harm. You must not do that. You must never use this formula on its own. So this is why, and practitioners are taught to understand this, because occasionally when you use this formula, you have to sort of hold back a little bit, because sometimes it's just a little bit too strong. It is a very powerful formula. Now here you have a clear understanding of the relationship of those extraordinarily important ducts, those lymph glands, the biggest lymph glands in the human body, that flush into the Cisterna chyli, that flush up through the lymphatic duct, that flush into the veins, that flush and pumped directly into the heart. So above, so below. When it's trapped above, it's trapped below. So if, for example, the complication is in the upper right quadrant, you would use heart power 2, spiritual calm. And after you've taken that formula, you would move on to the cisterna heart path 6. If the problem is in the pulmonary valve, you would use the pulmonary valve formula. And after you've taken that formula, you would take heart path 6. Likewise, if the problem is in the mitral valve, you would take the mitral formula, emotional immunity, heart path 4. And afterwards, usually about 5 seconds, 10 seconds afterwards, you would take heart path 6. And likewise, if you had a problem in the aortic valve, you would take heart path 5, structural integrity. 5 seconds later, you would take heart path 6. The lymph system. This is so complex. It's completely misunderstood. It's been forgotten. It's the least it's the most misunderstood, and it's the least understood system in the body, and it's utterly critical to our survival. The human body detests toxins, poisons, old toxic thoughts, old poisonous memories. The human body hates anything poisonous, and it will do everything in its power to eliminate it. But the lymph is absolutely crucial to understand this incredible lymphatic system running parallel with the blood. It's responsible for the removal of waste from every cell in the body. And it's also additionally important, desperately important, as the regulator of the immune system. So keep your body's drains clean. The lymphatic system is like the garbage system of the body. Proper functioning of the lymphatic system is essential in order to properly eliminate waste. Our lymphatic system can become and remain congested and stagnant for many years, practically all our lives, creating the most appalling degenerative illnesses, weakening our immunity, and creating extraordinary symptoms. And it's fascinating because this is rarely the key to understanding the concept of fetal biophysics, the main, powerful, utterly extraordinary concept that we are soul beings, that our emotions, our spiritual journey, absolutely, it's key to our health. When our spirit is sound, when our soul is happy, when we sing, when we laugh, when we dream, when we are in love with our lives, our friends and our family, when we eat properly because we love our bodies and we care for ourselves. These are so desperately important, and never more so in modern society, because there's an enormous amount of toxicity in the environment. And of course, toxins are not just physical, they're spiritual as well. Spiritual, and one of the most powerful aggressions in modern society is fear. How do we keep ourselves healthy? How do we keep our immune systems healthy? Well, we live well. We live and we love well. And when we are stable in our hearts, then our lymph system flushes automatically and we remain incredibly healthy. The human body is quite remarkable. Our extraordinary formulas are constantly responsible for regulating our soul, our spirit journey, our emotional journey, to ensure that our physical bodies and our incredible innate ability to heal and recover and to live well is constantly restored and supported. So where does it all begin? The body's ability to detox starts in the digestive system, in the villi of the small intestines. The lacteals in the villi are part of the lymphatic system. They pull nutrients and fat-soluble toxins off the intestinal wall. But we also know that, again, according to Chinese medicine, it is incredibly valuable to understand something extraordinary, so simple in a way, and that is that every organ in the human body, according to Chinese wisdom and Chinese medicine, is every organ has a hollow organ. And the heart meridian, which is actually the meridian of the little finger, the actual hollow organ of the heart is the small intestines. And we base our concept of our heart lock theory. Each of our heart locks will relate to the correlative organs so below. So for example, if the tricuspid valve is in spasm because of some form of terrible spiritual tragedy that will pull a tragic relationship, an equal spasm in the beginning of the entire small intestine system, which is the duodenum, which is the meeting point of the waste products from the liver, the waste products or the digestive tract, all the food that we eat, the pancreatic enzymes that are responsible for making sure that we are able to absorb and assimilate these nutrients. Likewise, the mitral valve, the correlative organ of the correlative so below, is the jejunum, the incredible top, if you like, the U-bend between the duodenum and the top of the small intestines. The correlative organ of the pulmonary valve, the correlative valve, is the ileocecal valve, the appendix, the end of the small intestines, the beginning of the large intestines, the ascending colon. Likewise, the correlative valve of the aortic valve is the extraordinary little Houston valve, which is the end of the descending colon and the beginning of the sigmoid. So everything that happens to us so above also happens to us so below. The soul, the physical body relating to the soul. When we hurt the soul, we hurt the physical body because it can't work. The highest concentration of lymph is found lining the outside of the gut wall. It's called the gut-associated lymphoid, the GALT. The skin of the intestinal tract is constantly being exposed to toxins and undesirable microbes that could present a problem. So the body has an immunity, an army waiting in the GALT just across the wall of the gut. The eosinophils, the basophils, the lymphocytes, all of these extraordinary white blood cells, which are responsible for our immune systems. They're all incredibly active, and again we also have the monocytes. So we also have to remember something important, and this takes us right back to an extraordinary stem cells of the human body, these extraordinary stem cells called the megakaryocytes. The megakaryocytes are literally the soul of our relationship, the boundary, if you like, the heart center point, relative to heart center point. These extraordinary megakaryocytes, they are the control mechanism between our soul and our physical body, our environment, our outside environment and our internal environment. So the megakaryocytes are being damaged by modern society on every level of consciousness. The megakaryocytes related to creating these incredible little blood platelets that protect us and heal us on every level in our physical body. But they also throw back a massive message into the bone marrow to produce these incredible blood cells that keep us alive. So this is really quite an important explanation. Back to where we were. If there is a blockage in the heart, there will be a blockage in the correlative lymphatic ducts. They just simply can't drain. So what are we looking at in modern society? We're actually seeing people bruising and bleeding, nosebleeds in children, complicated menstrual complications, bruising under the skin. We're noticing it all the time. Even today, I had an interesting and sweet woman with a huge flobby tummy, the greater omentum, the head of the jellyfish. Why is it not flushing? Something has happened to her. She's not very well. She told me that she's got bleeding colitis and very, very unhappy and very seriously under par. She needed heart par 1 and she needed Cistern Kylie support. Which was so interesting in view of the fact that I was just about to come and do this very important talk. Just a little description here is if you're dosing with tricuspid valve support, heart par 2, if you're giving your patient only one of those formulas, you would only use one of the heart par formulas. Likewise, if the dosage is twice, you would only give heart power 6 twice. So the dosage must be exactly the same. If it's 3 times a day, heart power 6 would also be 3 times a day. 4 times a day, heart power 6, 4 times a day. So it's exactly the same dosage. Again, exactly the same. Heart power 3 times 1, heart power 6 times 1. Always afterwards, always after the heart power. Likewise, heart power 3, heart power 4, likewise, heart power 5. All the same, always, always, always. So if somebody has a need, track back, if somebody has a need for one of these heart power formulas, you know that those lymph glands are also going to be blocked. You know also that if it's an aortic complication and that patient needs structural integrity, you know 2 things. Immediately you know that those valves are blocked. But here I want to go into a slightly more complex level as well. If you have a problem with your heart lock, you will also have a correlative problem with the lymphatics of the colon, with the inguinals, with the popliteals, with the organs in the legs. So you're going to get complications with the lymph. If it's in the tricuspid, it will be right up at the top. Again, in the maxillary, you're going to have the same correlative complications. And again, I'm going to stay there for one moment, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about this map, which is relative to all of them, but here we have a very good example. If you have a problem with the tricuspid valve, the lymph nodes of the upper right quadrant of the human body are also going to be congested because they flow into those large lymph nodes that we were looking at in the abdomen. But there's something else that we need to consider here as well. When we look at the heart lock, we don't just look at the quadrant, we also look at the journey. If you have a spiritual trauma in the human body on any level, whether it be pulmonary, mitral, or aortic, or tricuspid, you will also have a blockage in the lymph glands on the spiritual quadrant, which is upper right. If you have a mental quadrant, a mental journey trauma, then the lymph glands of the lower right quadrant will also congest. If you have an emotional issue, regardless of whether it's in the tricuspid valve, the pulmonary valve, the mitral, or the aortic, then the lymph glands in the upper left quadrant will also be congested. Each quadrant in that map, you have to put the map into the lymph glands to see where it would manifest. If it's physical, it would manifest in the lower left corner. If it's emotional, upper left. If it's pulmonary, mental, it would be lower left, lower right. And if it's spiritual, it's upper right. So you've got this concept of the rule of the 64 changes. You can put the map of the 64 changes onto each gland, and you will find the congestion that will link with that. And this is vitally important for you to understand, especially because we teach you how to do lymphatic drainage. And if you don't give somebody the correlative formulas before you do the lymph drainage massage, you're probably wasting your time. This is the back of the very deep glands which flush down through the brain. Again, correlative with the opposite quadrant. It's the back, so it's upper right of the back of the neck, lower right, upper left, and lower left. And then, of course, the face. We have the same concept of the superficial lymph glands draining from the face. And again, it's quite interesting because if you're experienced and you are really careful to look at people's faces, and the art of investigation through a wonderful concept called physiognomy, you can actually see these lymph glands in the face getting puffy, blocked, and disturbed and distorted. So be aware that you can look at the human body, you can see where someone is gaining fluid, gaining lymph, gaining congestion. You can see the wrinkles, the lymph congestion in wrinkles, in facial expressions, in the change of people's physiology, in the weight gain or the weight loss. You can actually see it when you look at people. How do you recognize the heart lock? You look at people. How do you look and how do you recognize constitution? You look at people. So the observation that we've taught you is so fascinating, because you have a book. When you have a patient who walks in through the door, you've looked at them, you've watched the way they've walked in, you've watched the way they approach you, you've looked at how they stand, how they lean, and you've already read them. You know them. And often patients say, how do you know all of this about me? Are you psychic? No, you're observant. You look at your patients, you observe them, you look at where they're in pain, you look at how they lean, you look at their body shape. Do they look sad? Do they look happy? Are they angry? Are they cross? Do their eyes sparkle? Do they shine? Do they radiate like a bride who's just about to get married and is madly in love and beautiful as a result? Or do they look sad and grumpy and bad-tempered? Are they fat, flabby? Do they hold their pain in their shoulders, in their hips? It's so, so fascinating. This concept, the heart lock theory, these extraordinary 6 formulas, 5 + 1, give you the ability to help people on a very, very important and very profound level. So, heart power, most extraordinary, the most powerful of our formulas, the most beautiful. And that is really what Feet of Biophysics is all about. Thank you.